Why so serious?
Welcome back to Best Asian Horror Movies. I'm your host Blinky, and today we're going to be exploring Ichi the Killer. We're also going to be discussing the history of the Yakuza and their portrayal in Japanese film, as well as conspiracy theories linking Ichi the Killer to the Dark Knight. At the end of the video, we're going to give the movie our own rating based on story, atmosphere, and eye-gouging terror. Before we begin, please like and subscribe. Ichi the Killer had been on my list for quite some time now, but I bumped it up immediately upon realizing that it was directed by none other than Takashi Miike, director of J-horror classic Audition, a film which still haunts me to this day. Audition uses slow burn tension and a brooding atmosphere to build to a gruesome and violent finale. Ichi the Killer takes that violence, multiplies it by 1,000, and beats you over the head with it. I didn't think there was any way to surpass the Terrifier movies in terms of shocking, brutal gore, but I was sadly proven wrong. More on that later. Ichi the Killer is a controversial and provocative film based on the manga by Hideo Yamamoto. The film centers around two main characters, Kakihara, a sadistic flamboyant Yakuza enforcer, and Ichi, an emotionally disturbed man who's manipulated into committing horrific acts of violence. The story begins with the disappearance of Anjo, the head of a Yakuza gang. Kakihara desperately searches for his leader, believing that Anjo's disappearance is linked to a deeper conspiracy. Meanwhile, Ichi is manipulated by a mysterious figure into committing a string of gruesome murders, making him an unwitting agent of chaos. Upon discovering that Ichi was the one behind Anjo's gruesome murder, Kakihara moves quickly to track him down. Witnessing the aftermath of Ichi's brutal massacres, Kakihara becomes obsessed with him, amazed and disillusioned that there's someone out there who's even more sadistic than him. The film is known for its extreme levels of violence, including graphic depictions of torture, which serve as both plot devices and reflections of the internal struggles of the characters. I love the part where Kakihara has Boss Suzuki suspended by hooks from the ceiling, poking and prodding at him when Jun Kinemura's character walks in, points a gun in his face, and asks him what the hell he's doing. Kakihara simply replies, "Just a little torture. Just a little torture." I burst out laughing. What a sick f***. The narrative exposes Ichi's vulnerability with the brutal violence he commits, creating a complex portrait of a man caught between extreme trauma and the desire to please others. Miike's bold visual style, accompanied by a dark, surreal tone, makes Ichi the Killer an unsettling exploration of humanity's dark nature. The Yakuza, Japan's organized crime syndicate, has been an integral part of the country's history for centuries. Its origins date back to the 1600s during the Edo period, where the Yakuza first emerged as groups of gamblers, street merchants, and outcasts. Over time, these groups evolved into more structured criminal organizations involved in various illicit activities, such as extortion, drug trafficking, and loan sharking. The Yakuza played a significant role in Japan's post-war period, where economic instability and the subsequent growth of black markets saw their power expand. The portrayal of the Yakuza in Japanese cinema can be traced back to the 1950s, when films began to reflect the changing social and political landscape of Japan. Early Yakuza films, such as Akira Kurosawa's Stray Dog, depicted Japan's dark criminal underworld, but with a focus on the struggles of individuals caught in the web of criminal activity. The 1960s saw the rise of Jutsuroku, or true account Yakuza films, which portrayed more realistic and gritty depictions of life in the criminal organizations. In the 1990s and 2000s, filmmakers like Takeshi Kitano and Takashi Miike revitalized the genre, with a focus on the psychological and emotional toll of life in the Yakuza. Ichi the Killer is one such film that explores the twisted relationships between Yakuza members, reflecting the deep moral decay and violence that pervades the criminal underworld. Miike's portrayal of the Yakuza in Ichi the Killer takes these themes to an extreme, focusing on the brutal nature of power struggles within the organization and the sadistic tendencies of its members. The Yakuza remains an enduring symbol of Japan's complex relationship with crime and society, continuing to influence filmmakers around the world.
He's gonna do something, and you know it's gonna be good!
Many fan theories claim that Ichi the Killer was a major influence on The Dark Knight, most obviously in Kakihara's Glasgow smile, dyed hair, and tacky wardrobe. This was even touched upon in a BBC article discussing Ichi the Killer's global influence. At the same time, Ichi dons a black armored suit with yellow highlights and acts as a heroic vigilante, at least in his own eyes. But the similarities between Joker and Kakihara and Batman and Ichi actually go quite further. Ichi survived a traumatic event as a child, one which had a deep psychological effect on him. He also trained extensively in martial arts to fight back against the bullies who tormented him in school, using his combat skills to take on Tokyo's criminal underworld. Kakihara is a psychotic, violent rogue, hired by the mob to do their dirty work, a job he takes great pleasure in. Upon learning of Ichi's brutal killings, Kakihara becomes obsessed with him, almost idolizing him in a sick and fantastical way. While there are indeed many parallels that can be drawn, even comparing mob boss Suzuki to Two-Face, I was unable to find any evidence of Christopher Nolan acknowledging the film, or of Takashi Miike discussing Batman. Some fans even say that Ichi the Killer took inspiration from Tim Burton's Batman, pointing to the similarities in Joker and Kakihara's death scenes. It is important to remember, however, that the Joker character, his wide smile and purple suit, has been around since 1940, with the first Batman comic coming out a year earlier. So to say that Heath Ledger's Joker was inspired by Kakihara would be ridiculous. However, is it possible that Hideo Yamamoto, who wrote the original manga, took some inspiration from the Batman and Joker characters while never officially acknowledging it or maybe even realizing it? Yeah. Is it possible that Christopher Nolan took stylistic inspiration from Takashi Miike's movie adaptation? Yeah. Is it possible that part of The Dark Knight's $185 million budget was provided by the CIA through a series of shell corporations in order to spread American exceptionalism around the world to fuel the expansion of the military-industrial complex to sell even more weapons back to Japan? Probably not, but definitely some interesting parallels between the two franchises. Ichi the Killer became a significant cultural touchstone upon its release, influencing a new wave of filmmakers both in Japan and internationally. Its uncompromising depiction of violence, combined with a twisted psychological narrative, inspired many filmmakers who sought to explore the darker aspects of human nature. Directors like Nicholas Winding Refn, who created Drive, and Quentin Tarantino, known for his hyper-stylized violence, have cited Miike's work as an inspiration. The film's audacious approach to brutality and its surreal, almost cartoonish violence would become a reference point for films that sought to blur the line between horror, thriller, and drama. Ichi the Killer also helped establish a subgenre known as extreme cinema, which is defined by films that feature graphic violence, sexual content, and often explore taboo subjects. In particular, films that focus on psychological breakdowns and the effects of trauma on individuals certainly owe a debt to Miike's unflinching style. Here at Best Asian Horror Movies, we're going to be rating our films based on 3 criteria: story, atmosphere, and terror, with each category eligible for a maximum of 6 bloody skulls. Now, I had assumed before watching the film that the man with the dyed blonde hair and the Glasgow smile was Ichi the Killer. I was surprised to learn who Ichi actually was, and I think the film did an excellent job of developing him as a tragic, tormented, but nonetheless horrible, sadistic character. The story of rival Yakuza gangs, fighting for power using torture, psychological manipulation, and even corrupt police officers as a means to an end was very fascinating to watch unfold. So I'm gonna go with 5 bloody skulls here. From the very get-go, you know you're in for something unique and disturbing. The film starts off with blasting percussive music, hyper-fast transitions, and brutal, disturbing imagery. Miike does a really remarkable job of putting the viewer in the middle of Tokyo's seedy underworld, and the outlandish costumes and over-the-top gore really add to the film's overall style. Let's go 5 bloody skulls. Now, if you asked me 2 days ago what the most brutal, violent film I'd seen was, I would probably say Terrifier 2 or 3. And it would be difficult to say whose torture methods are more sadistic, Art's or Kakihara's. Ichi the Killer takes it to a whole other level, and I don't necessarily mean that as a compliment. The scenes where the working girls are being SA'd and tortured were really difficult to watch, especially knowing that things like that unfortunately happen all the time in the real world. With the Terrifier movies, there are so many fantastical elements to it that you never really take any of the kills seriously, whereas the beatings and murders in Ichi the Killer oftentimes felt too real. Even a day after watching the film, I still feel dirty and uncomfortable. Hell, it's been a month since I watched Audition, and I still feel sad whenever I think about it. Damn you, Takashi Miike, I just wanted to watch a scary movie. 6 bloody skulls, but listen, this film is really messed up, and you should only watch it if you have a high tolerance for gore and tragedy. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought of the video down below. If there are any other films you'd like to recommend for me to watch and review, again, yeah, just pop them down in the comments. Have a great day, and I'll catch y'all next time. Okay, bye.